Hello everybody, how's it going? Like Butter here, today with another Division video, and I want to talk about the Week 3 changes that are being made to the public test server, and talk about, what I think about the changes and all that good stuff. Now, there wasn't too many things changed in Week 3 compared to, like, Week 2. Week 2 had a bunch of tweaks, a bunch of changes from the original values. Now, I'm going to put the patch notes in a link in the description. You want to check it out, read it along with me. Now, remember, these changes have been made from the Week 2 of the PTS, not the live version, so if you're on console and haven't tried the PTS, some of these may not make sense, but if you go through and you look at the patch notes for Week 2, these changes and values will make a little bit more sense. So, first thing that we're going to be going over are the gameplay changes. There were a few gameplay changes to NPCs. Now, it felt like randomly, I don't know what it was, over the week of patch 2 of the PTS, the NPCs started to get a bit strong and a bit tanky again. And this was due to a bug and a problem that they talked about, changes possibly in the fact that if you remember when 1.4 PTS first came out, they had a lot of the skills and a lot of the talents were a little bit higher. A lot of those values have been brought down, which would make sense why the NPCs would start to feel a little bit tanky again. You had responsive that changed from 15% to 10%. Savage got changed from 10% critical down to 7. Health on kill got lowered a little bit too. So it started feeling a little bit 1.3-ish again. So what they did is they changed the level 31 to level 33 NPCs by 15%. So they're going to be doing 15% less damage, which is going to be a little bit more normal now, like it felt when originally the 1.4 PTS came out. And they also changed the armor from the level 31 to level 33 elite NPCs by 17%. So there were a few times, especially at like Midtown or even in the pit, where the LMB just felt a little bit too tanky. So this is going to take down those armor values a little bit, make it a little bit easier to shoot through them, because people really enjoyed the fact that you can shred through NPCs now, because that's how the game should feel. When a new update comes out or a new patch where new gear is implemented and higher gear score, that's where you should feel that progression up to a certain point. But if you've been farming for weeks and you have all min-max gear and you got a very, very solid set, a very solid build, you should be able to shred through the NPCs. That's the power of getting a build that's optimized. You should feel like God, So that's a good change there. They also updated the way NPCs react to player threat. Now, I was a little bit confused at what threat really meant in the Division. I always thought threat meant that it would aggro enemies from a certain distance. So for example, if you had a silencer on your weapon, you wouldn't aggro enemies from a certain distance away. That's actually not the case. What threat was meant to be a aggro indicator. So for example, if you are building a tank, right? Say you have like 150,000 health, maxed out armor, a bunch of exotic damage resilience, and you want to be the tank of the team, then you want to get some threat on some of your items. So maybe you want threat on your barrel, or you want to use a skill that's going to incorporate threat, like a ballistic shield. Certain skills are going to be getting a percentage of threat, kind of just how, every NPC that you shoot has a percentage chance to stagger them. Same thing with the threat. You're going to have a chance to, pull aggro for your team. So what does that mean? If you're a DPS player and you're doing PvE, you probably want reduced threat. Maybe you want like a silencer on your gun or something, because if you're doing the majority of the damage, you want the NPCs to focus you less and you want your tankier players to be focused. This is going to add a really cool element to the game, and I think that, in the future, if we were to get some sort of raids in the Division, which I'm praying for, because we all thought that the incursions would be raids when they just weren't. They were just kind of, wave-based, hard missions for you and a group to do. In the future, if they add multiple part raids, that this will be a really cool mechanic, because you can have a player that builds super tanky, and you could have like a healer or somebody who has skill power to heal that tank, and you'll be able to, you know, take a lot of damage. So that's a really cool change that they made to threat. So you're going to be able to manage that enemy aggro, so that's awesome. So Reckless got changed. Thank God. If you guys don't know, Reckless got nerfed into the ground to a state where it just felt not useful. Now I think it's going to be useful again. People are going to like it if you're using a DPS build, or maybe if you're using like just a super tanky build and you have your armor almost completely maxed out and you don't mind taking the extra you know, damage in order to output more damage. That might be a good pick for you. But the damage received from enemies debuff has been reduced from 15% to 10%. So what it used to be is you used to take 10% more damage but do 15% more damage. And that was obviously scaled to the old 1.3 update, where everyone was doing more damage and everything was tankier to compensate for that. So they changed it because they felt like it was a little bit too strong. They changed it to doing 8% more damage, but taking 15% more damage. Now that just did not make sense to me. How like, no one's gonna use a gear piece where you're gonna take twice the amount of damage that you're gonna be doing. That completely just negates the whole purpose of the item. The reason you use an item like this is it's kind of like Hearthstone. I don't know if you guys play Hearthstone. It's a card game made by Blizzard. There's some cards that have negative effects but have positive effects that, you know, happen automatically right away. So you may have a card that makes your minions cost more, but that minion that you put out might be really strong. That's kind of how Reckless is. You take that 8% damage that you're going to be doing and hope that you output that damage before you take the extra damage that you're going to, you know, be debuffed from. And I think now that it's an 8 to 10 ratio, it's much better. I still think you should be like 10% to 10%. I think that would be really, really good in balance. Like, you do 10% more damage, but you take more 10% more damage. I think that would be fair. But as it stands right now, you do 8% more damage and take 10% more damage. So I think this is much more balanced. I think you guys are going to see Reckless be used a lot more. So that's really good. You know, it's not completely, you know, ruined now. Search and destroy high value targets. There's been some changes with the enemies in search and destroy missions. They were spawning a lot of elites. Those elites are no longer going to be there. Weekly high value and high risk target missions will now scale according to group size, which is really good, which means that you can do the weekly HVTs solo if you want to, because it will scale. So that's really awesome. Now, there was a change to the Banshee set, which if you guys don't know, Banshee is the new gear set that replaced Blind. They couldn't find a way for Blind to be useful or to be a fun gear set, so they replaced it with a gear set that is Banshee. What Banshee does is it's kind of like the Dark Zone gear set. You get 20% more currency with the 2-piece. 3-piece is 10% more damage to enemies out of cover, because you know how the gunfights work in the Dark Zone in PvP. A lot of the times your enemies are going to be out of cover, so this is going to kind of encourage people to use cover a little bit more to take that less damage if they're using the Banshee set. And the 4-piece bonus, they had to change. Remember I talked about how they had this set on the, if you're non-rogue, that was really cool, right? It made you move 20% faster. They couldn't keep that in the game because it would hit certain portions. And I remember this used to happen to my friend Pete when he played the game. He didn't have the best PC. And sometimes he would be running and the game would make him walk. It's kind of like a compensation thing where it slows you down so that things can start to load in. So it's just like, you know, not like a black screen where something is supposed to load. So in order to keep that from happening on, you know, some situations where it gets a bit hectic, so say like there's a bunch of players and a bunch of NPCs in one part of the map and you're, you know, using the 20% movement speed, it may cause things to lag, things not to load. So they got rid of that. Let me backtrack for a second if you don't know what the 4-piece Banshee is. Basically, depending on whether you're rogue or non-rogue, it would give you different bonuses. So now the bonuses are, while rogue, your ammo is completely refilled every 30 seconds, which means every 30 seconds you go back to full ammo, which means, like, you know, all your ammo capacity on your gear, all of that is going to go up to the max. Damage taken from non-rogue players is reduced by 10%. Now, this is the change that they made while not rogue. Damage to rogue players is increased by 10%. So that's good. That means that if you're using this and you're a rogue hunter, you're still going to do that 10% extra damage like was in the, the last patch. But you're not going to lose any Dark Zone XP or currency on death. Now, I think this is pretty cool. At the same time, I can see why people don't like that. I think that this is going to affect people who go rogue. If say you kill a non-rogue player, you may not get currency from that player unless you can still get it. And if you can still get it, then people are going to boost with this gear set. So I'm not sure how this is going to work. But I think if you kill a player with this gear set on, you're not going to be able to get any Dark Zone funds from them. I don't know if this is, counts keys as well. But yeah, I can see why people don't like that very much, but I thought it would be a little bit better if maybe they increase the manhunt radius where you could see manhunts from anywhere on the map if you're using this set, and also maybe it would ping rogue a little bit faster, so instead of every 5 seconds, maybe it'd ping every 1 second on the map, so you could literally be a rogue hunter if that's what you wanted to do, and that would create more action and more fun experience, and I think that would be cool. But this is, work in progress. I want to see how it goes. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Do you guys like how you don't lose XP or currency on death? Maybe this is going to be a good set for people to build who just want to farm in the Dark Zone and don't want to continuously be ganked by rogues. Maybe that will encourage more people to go into the Dark Zone. I mean, I could dig that. I really wish more people would give the Dark Zone a chance. There's a lot of PvE players out there that I feel like miss a really big opportunity because they go into the Dark Zone under-geared because, it used to be where you needed to go to the Dark Zone to get gear, which is not the case anymore. But yeah, it would be cool if those people didn't have such a bad experience when entering the Dark Zone. So that's the change to the 4-piece Banshee. They also made it so that named weapons can drop higher gear score. So what that means is you can get a 229 Caduceus now. Although I was looking at my Caduceus on the PTS and it looks like they swapped out Cold-Blooded for Determined. Now, I don't know how people are going to react to that because Cold-Blooded was one of the only reasons to get the Caduceus because it would lower your cooldowns on headshots. I can understand why that may not be in the game. I don't know if they're going to change it to another gun or something, but yeah, if you really like those named weapons, they are going to be available at higher gear score, which is cool. So you may get like a Hungry Hog or something, or I think the Hungry Hog's already 229. But if you wanted to get like say a Midas, like you really like the Midas, you like the talents it had on it, you're going to be able to get that in a 229 version now. So that's pretty cool. DPS calculation is a little bit changed. DPS calculation now values headshot damage differently from each weapon category to more accurately guide the player when modding weapons. Okay, so that's cool. It looks like they changed the DPS calculator a little bit. Ammo capacity has been decreased by 25%. So it's still 50% increased from 1.3. I actually noticed I was running out of ammo a little bit. So we'll have to see if that 25% decrease is still going to be there. I think the reason they're doing this is because they don't want ammo capacity to be completely useless if you can basically get as much ammo as you want. But yeah, so ammo capacity got decreased a tiny bit. Oh, and look at that. Caduceus has had its talents modified to replace the removed talent restored and better fit the new gear score scaling. Wait, what? It now has the following talents: talented, competent, determined. Wait, I thought it had cool-headed on it. I'm so confused. Maybe you guys can let me know, but I'm pretty sure cool-headed was on that gun. Okay, cool. Well, I don't know. So improved skill power, diminishing return curve. I think was it Marco that made a video about this? He talked about how it was actually better to only spec a little bit into electronics than to do a full out skill build because you got more value from only putting some electronics into your build. So now apparently that scaling, the diminishing returns is a little bit more balanced, which means that, you skill power players who like to build a lot of electronics and like to do a lot of damage on your skills, you're not going to feel that, decrease in value over the amount of skill power that you have anymore, which is cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it. They did some changes with like skill haste and stuff. Skill haste was super bugged. You could basically max it over 100%, and you could have your cooldowns on as basically a 0% cooldown. So that's been changed. A couple changes to the skills. If you want like a little bit more detail, you guys can check that out there. Let me look at this pulse. Tactical scanner decreased critical hit damage by 20% from 10% to 8% on tactical scanner. Scrambler added threat reduction when you use pulse with this mod. Okay, so that's cool. So now if you use scrambler, which is conceal, I call it conceal a lot, you're gonna be able to use that in PvE, and you'll kind of reduce your threat, which means that NPCs won't focus you as much unless you're like in the front shooting them. So that's really cool. I don't know about the tactical scanner. Decreased critical hit damage bonus by 20%. Now, if I remember, tactical scanner is the one that does extra damage, right? It wasn't doing much crit hit damage at all. I don't know why that got reduced. I'm not sure. Maybe people found it being a little bit too strong. But sure, I guess. Whatever. So loot and rewards have been changed a little bit. They talked about the 4 horsemen are no longer going to drop like a bunch of high-end items in gear sets like they used to. Now instead you're going to have a chance to get crafting materials. So you can see they're trying to make crafting become a little bit more viable in 1.4, which is good, because I think although you should be getting a lot like your main gear and your good items from drops, I also think that crafting should be a secondary way to get the things that you want as well, because we all know, rolling weapons is super fun. So yeah, they're trying to make it a little bit easier for that. So they've done some changes to vendors too. I don't know if you guys know this yet, but you can buy sealed caches from vendors now, which gives you a percentage chance of getting either a gear set or a weapon. That's also really cool because you're going to have stuff to spend your Phoenix credits, your Dark Zone funds, your regular, currency. You're going to have things to spend it on now. You can go through, like right now on this character, I think I have like 3 million currency, so I have nothing really to spend it on. Now I'm going to be able to just blow through that cash in just a couple of minutes by buying all those seal caches and kind of gambling to see if I can get anything good. So there's been a lot of amazing changes in 1.4. I can't stress enough. If you stop playing the Division or haven't played it in a while, 1.4 is going to be the update that brings everyone back, and I think this is going to be really cool. And then hopefully, maybe a month down the road, we get some more word about survival. That's going to be cool. So there's no date yet about 1.4, guys, but if I were to guess, I'd say maybe the 3rd week in October. They did say it was going to be in October, but they want to see how week 3 of the PTS goes. So, they don't want to jump the gun and say, oh yeah, we're going to release it next week. And then all of a sudden some bugs pop out of nowhere and they have to deal with it, and then they have to delay it and people are mad. So they're not giving a specific date yet. But anyways, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop the video a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.